There is a lot of chatter from New Yorkers at the RNC that this state will be in play come November. Now, that is despite the Democrat winning every presidential election here over the past 40 years. Look at this. Ronald Reagan was the last Republican to carry New York. And in 1984, he won every state except Minnesota and Washington, D.C. That's some important perspective. So why this talk of Donald Trump potentially winning New York? Well, take a look at these numbers. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won here by 21 points. President Biden increased the margin to 23 points in 2020. And as recently as the beginning of May of this year, there was a slingshot poll that had Biden beating Trump by 19 points. But then look at those two more recent surveys. An Emerson College poll last month had Biden +7 in a head-to-head against Trump. And a Siena College survey from a month ago showed Biden with just an 8-point lead. Well, that was all before the president's poor debate performance, prompting the Democratic borough president in Manhattan to say this. Quote, "We're still acting like this is a one-party state, which for pretty much 25 years it has been. I truly believe we're a battleground state now," end quote. Republican gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin added this from the convention yesterday in Milwaukee.
President Trump can win New York. I would say that's difficult, that it's uphill. However, the political earth under us in New York has shifted right. Since 2022, new issues have emerged. Like when I ran, the border crisis was not a top 3 issue. Now, for a lot of voters, it is their #1 issue.
So in that Emerson poll, 16% of New Yorkers said that immigration was the most important issue, but you can see that's well behind the economy at 34%. Crime rounded out the top 3. Matt Taglia is Emerson College Polling's senior director, and he joins me now live. I appreciate you taking some time for us here this evening. This question has really come up since the poor debate performance, and some people wondering if we could see even a further shift in the polls. We haven't had one specifically in New York since that debate, but how do you size up this conversation that New York could potentially be in play?
Well, I don't think it's impossible. I'd agree with some of that analysis there, but it will certainly be a heavy lift for the Biden campaign. As you said, it was about a 23 point race in 2020. So there's quite a lot that the Trump campaign would have to do in order to pull out the win in New York. We saw about a 6 to 7 point lead for President Biden in the poll from May. Yes, that is far lower than the margin in 2020, but there would still be some work that the Trump campaign would have to do in order to actually win the state.
Yeah, as I was looking through your poll, which again is a couple of months old now, but still gives us a lot of insight into the shift compared to 2020. When you look at the issues, I mean, economy was #1 for a third of voters, but immigration was #2, as we showed. Crime was #3. I think abortion only registered at either 3 or 6% among New Yorkers. So the issues in which Democrats, you would expect, would do really well are issues that voters don't seem to be caring as much about right now. Does that factor into this?
It does. I think folks tend to rate the economy and inflation as one of their highest priorities because that's the thing they're seeing most of. They go to the grocery store, they get gas, that's top of mind. So that's something that both campaigns are working to craft in their favor. Abortion, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily hit home with everyone, especially in states like New York, which doesn't have some of the same legislation that some of the more Republican-held states have enacted over the past few months or even the past year. So, we've seen this in other states that abortion is lower as a priority. That doesn't mean it's not a priority. That doesn't mean that Democrats aren't going to turn out, especially in states where it is on the ballot. But it might not factor in quite as much as that economy and inflation number.
Finally, Matt, I have less than a minute here, but I spoke with a really smart political analyst who told me that polling is so difficult leading up until now because people just haven't been paying attention. So how do you figure out who is a likely voter? Do you think we should have more confidence in some of the polling now that people are starting to think about these things, and especially once we get through both party conventions?
Yeah, even right now, it's still early in the election season. We are just now starting to get into the campaigns in earnest. So this is really the time where folks are starting to pay attention. We won't really be looking at likely voters until around Labor Day. And at that point, we're going to determine that based on who says that they're likely and on past voter turnout. So you can have confidence in the polls right now as a snapshot in time and as where the campaigns are going, who's improving, who's getting worse, but don't necessarily take them as a prediction of what's going to happen in November. But right now is when people start to pay attention. And then come Labor Day, that's when we'll really start to see some of that likely voter turnout in the poll.
Matt Taglia, Emerson College Polling's Senior Director, thanks for sharing some time with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue the conversation now with Bob McCarthy, our 7 News political analyst. So, Bob, put plainly, do you think New York could ever be, or at least in the short term, a battleground state?
Michael, you and I have talked about this. About 6 weeks ago, we talked about the Siena poll that showed an 8-point differential between the two of them. Still a very heavy lift, especially when you go to fill in the blanks on Election Day and Democrats really turn out and Republicans are just overwhelmed by numbers. But you know what? Lee Zeldin lost to Kathy Hochul just 2 years ago by only 6 points. And these polls show that New York is at least beginning to think differently. Governor Pataki was with us a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, maybe some things are going on that makes New York in play. It's still a tough assignment for Republicans, but if I saw polls like this in New York State and I was involved with the Biden campaign, I'd be concerned.
The other thing I want to ask you about, in this story developing earlier today, there have been some chatter about how strong of a supporter U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer is of President Biden remaining the nominee. ABC News now reporting that Schumer and the minority leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, are working on trying to delay this nomination process for Biden to give them a little more time. What should we make of that reporting?
I find this to be a very significant news story today. I think at the least, it says that they're trying to buy some time to get this situation clarified. At the most, there's something really going on behind the scenes, especially with those two New Yorkers who are the heads of the 2 houses of Congress for the Democrats.
All right, 7 News political analyst Bob McCarthy. A lot going on politically. This is your busy season. This is like once we get playoffs in the NFL. Thanks, Bob. Good to see you.